The ground shook only for a second, but for the soldiers standing above the ridge, that second felt like the universe splitting open beneath their boots. A deep, rolling boom traveled through the earth like a living creature, followed by a plume of dust that erupted from a mountainside 2 kilometers away. And before any of them could process what had happened, the radio crackled with the words that would later be replayed in military academies around the world: tunnel system collapsed. Objective neutralized. Strategy confirmed effective. No one knew it then, but the tactic that had just been unleashed would soon be called the most advanced anti-tunnel method ever used in modern war. A method so precise, so devastating, and so transformative that it would change how nations think about underground warfare forever. For decades, tunnels had been the shadow weapon of the battlefield. Armies around the world discovered that if they couldn't win above the ground, they could disappear below it. Beneath deserts, beneath mountains, beneath entire cities, networks of hidden passageways allowed fighters to move like ghosts, unseen, unpredictable, untouchable. Some tunnels stretched for miles, with multiple exits, dead ends, and decoys designed to confuse even the most advanced sensors. Some were deep enough to withstand bombs, others reinforced to survive artillery fire. And as technology above the ground evolved, the world below it became even more dangerous. Entire wars shifted underground, and nations struggled to stop enemies who vanished beneath their feet. But everything changed when the newly developed anti-tunnel strategy emerged, a tactic combining intelligence, sensors, physics, and battlefield engineering in a way the world had never seen before. The story of this breakthrough begins months earlier, in a cramped intelligence bunker lit only by harsh white lights and the glow of dozens of monitors. Analysts studied thermal maps, seismic readings, and drone footage of a mountainous region that had long been believed to be an underground fortress. For years, enemy forces had used the labyrinth hidden beneath the rock to move weapons, launch surprise attacks, and hide high-value targets. Bombing the surface did nothing. Shelling the entrances only forced them to dig new ones. The tunnels survived everything thrown at them. And so the question echoed through every briefing: how do you destroy what you cannot see? One young engineer named Captain Laura Mills believed she had the answer. Her idea was unconventional, dangerous, risky, and, according to several senior officers, borderline insane. But the science behind it was undeniable. She proposed a coordinated anti-tunnel tactic that didn't rely on finding tunnel entrances or mapping the underground maze. Instead, it targeted the entire underground system at once using a combination of seismic disruption, pressure induction, and precision charges placed at key geological weak points. In simple terms, instead of attacking the tunnels directly, the tactic attacked the Earth itself. Her theory was straightforward but revolutionary. Every mountain, no matter how strong, has structural weaknesses, fault lines, loose granite pockets, sandstone veins, hollow fragments, that, when hit at the right angle with the right force, could collapse everything inside. Like breaking the spine of a book instead of tearing out the pages. The generals were skeptical. The mountains were enormous. The tunnels were deep. No weapons had ever fully collapsed a system of that size. But after months of simulations, field studies, and pressure tests, they agreed to allow one operation. A single mission to prove whether Captain Mills' method worked. On a cold morning just before sunrise, a convoy of armored vehicles rolled into the valley. Engineers set up seismic sensors across the surrounding hills. Drones soared through the air, scanning the ground from above with multispectral lenses. Troops secured the perimeter, watching the ridgelines for any sign of movement. And far in the rear, a group of technicians prepared a series of specialized charges unlike anything used before in modern combat. They weren't massive bombs. They weren't designed to create craters or fireballs. Instead, they were shaped charges engineered to send a controlled directional shockwave deep into the bedrock. The charges were positioned not at tunnel entrances, but at precise geological weak points hundreds of meters away, locations identified only through satellite thermal imaging, ground-penetrating radar, drone magnetometry, and weeks of seismic study. Everything depended on timing. Everything depended on precision. Everything depended on a theory that had never been tested in the real world. As the sun began to rise, the final phase of the operation began. Engineers signaled command that charge placement was complete. The communication tower crackled. All units, stand by. A tense silence fell across the valley. Even the soldiers who trusted the science felt the weight of uncertainty pressing against their nerves. From miles away, a pair of surveillance drones watched the enemy's mountain hideout. The tunnels beneath that mountain had been active all night. Heat signatures showed movement, vehicles, machinery, possibly dozens of fighters preparing for another breakout attack. They had no idea the Earth itself was about to turn against them. 3, 2, 1, execute. The first charge detonated with a deep thud, not loud but powerful, like someone striking the ground with a giant hammer. The shockwave traveled through the Earth faster than sound, vibrating through the bedrock, probing for weaknesses. 10 seconds later, the second charge detonated on the opposite ridge, sending another seismic pulse downward. Sensors immediately recorded unusual vibrations, an encouraging sign. Then came the third charge. This one was placed at a geological hotspot where two ancient fault lines intersected. When it detonated, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The ground heaved slightly, dust rising from the cracks in the rocks. Birds scattered from the cliffs. The mountain across the valley groaned, a deep, unsettling rumble echoing beneath the surface. Inside the tunnels, chaos erupted. Fighters felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. Lights flickered. Dust rained from the ceiling. The rhythmic hum of generators broke into stuttering coughs. Several men ran toward the nearest exit, only to feel the tunnel suddenly tilt beneath them. They had no idea what was happening, only that something was coming, something enormous, unstoppable, merciless. Above ground, the seismic sensors lit up with red alerts. The pressure wave from the third charge had struck a hollow pocket within the mountain. This pocket acted like a giant amplifier, boosting the wave and sending it crashing deeper into the tunnel system. Mills' theory worked. The weakness she predicted existed, and the shockwave found it with brutal efficiency. Command gave the order for the final phase, the synchronized detonation. 5 more charges, carefully placed, scientifically calculated, were triggered simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the roar. It wasn't an explosion the soldiers saw first. It was the mountain itself sinking, just slightly, just enough for a thin line of dust to burst outward like steam from a boiling pot. That line grew wider, thicker, darker. And then, with a sound that could only be described as the earth crying out in pain, a massive portion of the mountainside collapsed. Inward, boulders the size of trucks crashed downward. Entire slabs of rock shifted and folded like crushed metal sheets. A shockwave of dirt, stone, and shattered debris burst outward, rolling across the valley floor like a brown tsunami. Within seconds, the tunnel system that had survived years of bombardment was gone. Not blocked, not damaged. Gone, crushed under millions of tons of shifting granite, sandstone, and compressed earth. Soldiers stood frozen, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The mountain had not exploded. It had folded, collapsed, devoured itself. A structure built over decades had vanished in less than 20 seconds. Drones immediately confirmed that thermal signatures inside the tunnels had disappeared. No lights, no generators, no movement. The underground fortress was extinguished. Command delivered the message over radio with a tone of disbelief, objective neutralized. Tunnel network collapse confirmed. For experts watching from intelligence centers thousands of miles away, the implications were staggering. A tactic that required minimal explosives, minimal aircraft, and no deep penetration bombing had just erased a tunnel network that military engineers once claimed was practically invincible. Word of the operation spread quickly through secure channels. Engineers, strategists, and analysts began studying the footage. Seismic readings were analyzed frame by frame. Thermal scans were reviewed, modeling simulations rerun. And the conclusion became undeniable. This was not just a successful strike. This was the birth of an entirely new type of anti-tunnel warfare. In traditional tunnel combat, armies rely on brute force, bombs, artillery, bunker busters. But tunnels, being flexible and deep, often survive. What Mills' tactic revealed was that the most effective weapon wasn't firepower, it was physics. By exploiting geological weaknesses, armies could collapse entire tunnel systems without even hitting them directly. This changed everything. Within months, militaries around the world began studying the method. Nations known for heavy tunnel usage suddenly found themselves vulnerable. Strategies were rewritten. Defense plans updated. Military academies added entire chapters dedicated to the operation. And as for Captain Mills, the engineer who once had her ideas dismissed as impossible, she became the architect of a new era in underground warfare. Her tactic proved that war wasn't just fought on land, sea, and air, it was fought inside the earth itself. And now, for the first time, the battlefield beneath the surface had a new dominant strategy. Even today, footage from that morning is shown in classified briefings, the dust rising from the mountain like steam, the ridge collapsing inward, the tunnel system breathing its final breath. It serves as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful victories come not from the weapons we expect, but from ideas bold enough to challenge everything we think we know. And as militaries continue to prepare for conflicts in deserts, jungles, cities, and mountains, one question continues to echo across every war room. If a tunnel can no longer hide you, where will you run?